All right. Um, so today we're going to cover the second half of the displacement analysis, which is our food and beverage portion. And and then hopefully if we have enough time, we will do full displacement analysis one more time in class. Just going to get your practice going again. Um, I went through my files. I found this kind of step-by-step checklist. So the front side is the room revenue analysis, the back side is the food and beverage analysis. Okay. So it kind of gives you those step-by-steps. Um, if you notice, if we look at the food and beverage analysis page and we compare that to the displacement analysis that I provided. The steps should add up based on the document that I provided. So step one, step two, step three, step four. And then I did not add step five on here. But all the information is there on the step-by-step page. Okay, so that hopefully, nope, you should have,
Oh, what do you say? Oh, my bad.
yeah.
Oh, they were the same thing. Sorry.
Okay, all right. So let's jump in and let's do some food and beverage discussion. Okay. Because what we want to think about as we are thinking about displacing our guests, right? We're talking about displacing our transient guests by taking on a group potentially. Okay. Um, and so for this information, we need to know, we can calculate based on the information that is provided. We can calculate the amount of room of food and beverage revenue that the group is going to be bringing in. Okay. Um, we can also take information to determine how much potential food and beverage we would lose if we were to take on this group. Those guests that are displaced, they could potentially, the guests that are displaced, they could potentially also order food in our dining room, in our breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So we're going to take that information into account as well. Okay. Um, so let's take a look at our food and beverage displacement. Okay. The first thing we want to look at is we want to figure out how many meals each group, the group is going to be requesting by meal type. Okay. And so you can see here, they're requesting 50 dinners on the first day, and then 200 breakfast, lunch, and dinner on the other 2 days. Okay. So we just simply add those up. So how many breakfast total are they requesting? 400. Lunches? 400 and dinner? 450. Okay. Now the group does not always have breakfast, lunch, and dinner at the hotel. Okay. It may depend on the group's overall budget. They may not provide dinner. They may not provide every meal for all of their attendees. Okay, sometimes you go to a conference and you have dinner on your own that you have to go and find, basically go find dinner for yourself. Sometimes we also have groups that will do dinner off-site. Like they'll take their whole group and they'll do a dinner somewhere in the area, kind of like as a special event that is not done there at the hotel. Okay, so don't think that every single group is automatically going to have all three meals served at that particular location. Okay. Sarah, is Danielle coming today?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so the next thing we want to talk about is the net revenue per meal. What does net revenue mean? Think about what we talked about last class, when we talked about the net revenue per room. What does net revenue mean?
Out, like the cost.
Yeah, so it's what our selling price is minus what costs what it costs us to make that particular item. Okay, so our net revenue per meal is we first have to figure out what our food cost is. Okay, anybody remember how to find the food cost?
Percent and sales.
Okay, yes. So if we draw this triangle here, those of you who have not had my cost control class, this will look new to you. Those of you who have had my cost control class, this will be a refresher for you. So if you draw this triangle, we have cost on the top, percent in sales on the bottom. This horizontal line acts as a division sign. And the vertical line acts as multiplication. Okay. So whatever we're looking for, we just cover up that portion of the triangle. So in this case, we're looking for the cost. So we cover up the cost and what's left over?
Multiply.
Percent times the sales. Okay. So percent times the sales is what's left over. And remember, when you do the percentage, you got to remove that decimal place back over to multiply it by the decimal. Okay, so $12 times 0.30 0.30. You don't have to add the zero, but you can. It's $3.60. Okay, $3.60. And if we multiply straight across, we have $20 times 0.34. And then we have $40 times 0.38. Okay. So multiply just straight across. You're welcome. For your notes, what I would recommend is you go ahead and just draw, multiply, and then put your equal sign. That way you remember what you did. As soon as you walk out the door, you're gonna pass the force field and you're gonna forget everything that we talked about. All right. So now how do we find that net revenue per meal?
Subtract the selling price from.
Exactly. We're gonna subtract the selling price minus the food cost. Selling price minus the food cost is our net revenue per meal. Okay. Questions, comments, concerns about how we find the net revenue per meal? Yes, sir.
How did you say you got the net revenue?
Net revenue per meal is the price, the menu price, minus our food cost. Okay? So just think about also, we talked about the net revenue per room last week. We took the room rate minus all the costs. That gave us our net revenue per meal. Okay? Net revenue is just the selling price minus the cost. And then in this case, we're talking about per meals. So that's how we get that net revenue per meal. Okay? Questions, comments, concerns? All right, now what we want to do here for the group meal requests, just like in our rooms, the group is going to want a discount on their meal pricing. They want a special pricing for their meals. Okay? That meal's going to cost us the same whether we make it for the guest that's a transient or we're going to make it for the guest that is part of the group. So these food costs right here, we just copy them right down into here. So the food cost is the same. The food cost is the same. And then how do we find the net revenue per meal?
Subtract.
We're gonna do it again. We're gonna subtract what the price that the group is requesting. We're gonna subtract that food cost. So in your notes, you could write the minus sign and the equal sign to remind you of what we did. Questions, comments, concerns about the group food costs or the group or the transient food cost? I tried to color code this. So the group stuff is going to be in green. The transient stuff will be in blue. That way it kind of helps you keep those numbers separated. All right, so let's do the group first. That's going to be the easier one. Okay. The group first. How many total breakfasts did the group request? 400. How many lunches? Okay, and how many dinners? 450. Perfect. Okay. So we're just copying these numbers from here at the top. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Okay. Our net revenue per meal is going to come right down into here. So that's that 440, $4.40, $8.20, and $14.80. Okay. So we're going to pull those net food revenue per meal. So every breakfast that we serve, we're going to get $4.40 because remember we subtracted the cost out of that breakfast. Okay. So our total net revenue, we simply multiply 400 times our net revenue per meal for breakfast and lunch. And then for dinner, it's gonna be that 450. Okay. Multiply straight across. 400 times $4.40 is 1,760. For our lunch, our total net revenue is 3,280. And our dinner, our total net revenue is $6,660. Okay. Questions about how we got that total net revenue? No? Okay. I'm gonna pause for a moment. Didn't resume it, dang it. That's okay. All right, so we did our net beverage revenue. So our beverage cost, $15 times the beverage percentage. And then subtract the cost from the selling price, that's our net beverage revenue. And then we're gonna multiply that by the percentage, the total for the group, and that will give us our net revenue. All right, so now let's put all this together. For our group, what was the total food for the group?
$11,700.
11,700. How about for the transient? What was the food for transient? 50 cents?
60 cents.
60. Okay. And then we have beverages right here. So for our group, beverages are 1,053 and 842.40 for our transient. So we add these two numbers together. My group total minus my transient total, food and beverage. Comes out to $8,900, $901. Okay, so I know I did that pretty quickly, but let me just go ahead and go through that really quick one more time. So we just basically we're compiling all of our numbers into one area, so it's a lot easier for us to see them. So our group total came from the first page, 11,700. This was our transient total displaced for food, 3,960. And then our beverages came from right here. That should be green. Right? So our beverages, 1,053. Our transient, 842.40. So we add those two numbers together to get our total food and beverage spend for each scenario. And then to get our differential, we subtract the group minus the transient is our differential. Group minus the transient is our differential. Questions, comments, concerns? All right, so that is gonna go, that number, that 8,901 is gonna go right here in our food and beverage differential, $8,901. The last one is our other revenue contributions, okay? So other things that contribute to revenue, things like what? That a group might spend money on. Spa. They might go to the spa, good, what else?
Meeting room.
The meeting room, so renting the meeting room space. What else?
Maybe.
Audio visual, okay, what else? Ballet, perfect, so all these things we can take into consideration for other contributions to revenue, okay? Now, some of those things like spa, valet, we could potentially do a capture rate just like we did for the transient, right? So maybe not all of our transient guests are gonna park valet. Maybe they're all not gonna go to the spa, okay? But we're not gonna go that detailed about this, okay? So this is just gonna be very easy, very basic. Meeting rooms for 2 days is $2,000. So that's my total other revenue is extra $2,000. So an extra $2,000 in other contributions. What piece are we missing in order to find out our actual displacement analysis? The rooms, okay? So let's go back and let's do a refresh from last week. From last week's room revenue. That's your other page that says displacement analysis B up on top. Okay. So as a reminder, we have a 250 room property. The rate that the group is requesting is $100. Our average daily rate projected at 190, so almost 50% off our ADR. Okay, and then our variable cost of $15 and our franchise fee and marketing fee of 2 and 3.5%. Okay. We figured out we have 450 total rooms that the group is requesting. So that's step number one, add up the total group nights requested. Okay. Hopefully this one will help guide you a little bit easier than the one that I gave you last week. Because I've put the steps in here embedded with the actual displacement analysis, but I've also given you the steps on a separate page. Food and beverage is on one side, room is on the other side. Okay. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna add up the total group nights requested. Then we're gonna calculate our potentially displaced. So again, we're going to add these two numbers together and then subtract the number of rooms that we have. So 160 plus 50 minus 250 is a negative 40, which means that's going to be a 0. Because if it's a negative number, we don't count it. Okay? We add these numbers together to get our total displaced of 120. Now we can do some more math. So our room cost. Remember, our room costs, calculate number 3, calculate the total group revenue. So what does our room cost equal? You need to write this formula in on this page right here. Right? I've written room cost equal, but I haven't written the formula out. What is the formula for the room cost?
Variable cost plus rate, times fee percent.
Okay, so our variable cost plus our fees times the room rate. Our fees times the room rate. I have to do that first. That's in parentheses. So we do that first. In this case here, what is our room rate? That we're requesting? $100, thank you. And what is our fees combined? 5.5%. So I move that decimal place over 2. So I'm gonna multiply 100 times 0.055 and get $5.50. So this is $5.50. And what is my variable cost? $15. Add these two numbers together. $20.50. So my room cost me $20.50 to clean it. So net revenue, how do we find net revenue?
You subtract the room cost from
The
the,
selling price minus the cost. So net revenue in any situation. Net revenue is the total selling price minus the cost. That's gonna give you your net revenue. Okay? Think about your net income. What does it mean when I say net income?
before you take away everything.
No, that's after. Net
Oh,
is
yeah, yeah,
after, gross is before. So gross income is what your hourly rate times your work time is. But then your net is what you actually take home, right? They take away all those taxes. That's why we have the net income. Apply that to net revenue in this scenario. Net revenue is what the room cost is, or the room selling price minus the room cost. Okay, so that is equal to what?
79.50.
$79.50. Okay. $79.50 is our net revenue per room. How many rooms did we request? The top?
250.
No,
From the very top?
450.
450 rooms we requested. And now we just multiply. 7950 are multiplied by 450. So in net room revenue, this group, what they're requesting, these amounts of rooms, should bring in $35,775. All right. Let's repeat our steps. I want you to repeat the steps on the displacement. Remember, the total displaced was 120. That's our total displaced. So I would like you on your own to calculate the room cost for the displaced, the transient rate, and the net revenue per room. Right. So then what I would recommend is, I saw some of you working on notes on your own page. That's fine if you want to do that. But try to do your math right here in this section. So that way you see where the numbers actually coordinate with the numbers that are on the page. Okay, so we did $15 plus 190 times 0.055. And that's gonna give me this $25.45. We subtract that from our 190 and get 164.55. Multiply this by 120 that are displaced, and we get a 19,746 potential revenue loss if we were to take this group. Okay. And then finally, with our group revenue at 35,000, our potential displaced at 19,000, our differential for the room is $16,029. So what this says is if we were to take this group and we had to displace 120 people, we would still come up on top at $16,029. We would still come out in the positive at $16,000. Okay. Now, when we add that all together, our net room revenue differential, the food and beverage differential, and that other revenue, if we were to take this group, it would result in potentially $26,930 worth of piece of business. Bless you. That would be at the expense of having to displace 120 people. Okay. What's that? Was that shocking?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. Right? So that $26,930 comes at the potential risk of having to displace 120 people. Right? So you may even just get down to the room revenue and say, you know what, or even at the displacement amount of the transient guests and say, nope, we don't want to take this piece of business. Okay. Or yeah, we can take this piece of business, but I cannot give you a $90 discount on my rate. The best rate I can give you maybe is $150. So I change that rate of $150, and if I've done everything correctly in Excel, it'll automatically update. I did not do it in Excel, hold on. Equals that plus that times that plus that. Parentheses. There we go. Now I've done it correctly in Excel. So yeah, I can't take this piece of business because I want to displace too many people. Wouldn't be worth it. But if I give you $150 rate, then that will be a difference of $48,000. I may be more inclined to displace 120 people for $48,000. Okay. Is that right? Yeah. So sometimes it's a negotiation, or you know what, right now, I can't take you during this time and give you a $90 discount on my rate. However, if you talk to your revenue manager, if you're the sales manager, you talk to your revenue manager and say, hey, you know what, David, you're the sales manager, and you don't have your numbers for April right now for groups. So if you can talk this group into going into April, they won't be displacing a lot of people, and yeah, we can give them $90 off of our rate. But right now, as it stands, the dates that they have, that's not available. So there's a lot of negotiation, there's a lot of back and forth between the client and the sales office to make things happen. And the revenue manager's looped in to make sure that we're selling the right room to the right guest on the right day for the right price. Okay? Questions, comments, concerns? Yes.
So you're not gonna take the $100 because, is it because the room differential or the revenue differential is so close to what transient would bring you?
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean, so then you think about it, is it worth me displacing these 120 people who are potentially, they could be lifetime guests, right? They could always come and spend their family vacation every year in San Antonio at our hotel. We don't know. These are 120 people that we potentially would have to displace. Is the money that it's gonna generate worth potentially displacing those 120 people? Okay? That makes sense? All right. So check this out. That's why I love Excel. So this is my displacement analysis B. My formula right here. In this right here says sum if. So what do you think that means? Sum if. Sum is what? Adding. So what I'm telling Excel is I want you to sum if this range of cells meets a certain criteria. So if these cells B19 to D19 and my criteria is greater than 0, if these are greater to 0, then I want you to add it. If it's not greater to 0, Excel's not going to add it. So you can actually put Excel in and Excel will do the math for you. This is why I love Excel. And then Excel talks to each other. So if we look at this formula right here at the very bottom where it says 16,029. I don't actually have $16,029 written into the cell. What this cell is saying is whatever's in room revenue, C37. So let me show you how I do that. I just do equals, go to this tab over here. Whatever's in this one, C37. So if that changes, then my total will change as well. That's why I love Excel so much. If you don't know Excel, I highly recommend that you take some basic Excel classes because it will make your life a lot easier keeping track of stuff. Any questions about displacement analysis? Do you guys want to do another whole displacement analysis from start to finish, room and food and beverage?
Probably should.
Probably should, okay. I agree with you. You probably should. Okay, so let me print out another example for you guys.
I mean, we don't wanna trouble you,
I mean, you could either do it on a piece of paper, but it's pretty easier if I print it out this way. And I'm gonna kill some trees, so that's okay.
I already did.
I mean, the paper's in there, so print. What's that? Of course. I want to print entire workbook. On both sides, no staple it.
Your printer can staple the paper?
That's why they're so giant.
Oh, that makes more
It's
sense
like
too.
everything.
That's why.
That's why the printers are so giant.
Yeah.
Like everything in it.
That's so cool. I wonder how much they cost.
Because you need more money.